Guest signed a contract with Canada. He served 20 years. He was in Afghanistan, Iraq. He held up his end. When he came home, he found himself arrested at a war memorial he was trying to guard, and he was convicted by the courts. Separately, he was fined nearly $29,000 for simply walking in the woods. Most people would have given up. He didn't. Welcome to the Silvercore podcast, Jeff Evely.
Thanks for having me, Travis. It's great to be here.
Well, it's good to have you here. What kind of brought you on the radar, of course, was that part I mentioned there about the $29,000 walking in the woods. That was in Nova Scotia. It was a bit of a ludicrous response to a province in crisis because of the fires that were happening. And the solution was, let's not contemplate industry in the woods, but let's contemplate individuals perhaps walking in the woods and setting the woods on fire with their sneakers. And when that came out, I was immediately, viscerally offended by it. I put a video out. I put it out on YouTube and put it on social media. TikTok actually banned my account for putting this video out, and all I did was state exactly what was in the government text in Nova Scotia. So I appealed that ban. I got the account back, but the actual response has never been addressed. It's just sitting there as pending, and it's been, what's it been, a year and a bit? So you came on the radar then. Tell me a little bit about yourself and how you came to popular culture in the way you did.
I think you covered it fairly well. Well, like you said, I was in the military for 20 years. I joined in 2001. I was medically retired in 2021. Last 10 years of my service, I was a single dad, and my kids are grown now and on their own. Upon my retirement, I retired back to my hometown of Sydney, Nova Scotia, and the day I took possession of my retirement home was the day the vaccine mandates came into effect. So I was effectively barred from polite society, and I can remember being at home alone, drinking alone with my firearms, and I'm only crawling distance away from the Legion, which was part of the selling features associated with the home that I'm in now. And I said, this is wrong. I should be up at the Legion getting the social support that I need right now. So I'm going to give it a shot. And I went up the road and went to the West Side Legion in Westmount, Nova Scotia. And of course, they refused me service. I just showed them my veteran's ID and I gave him my phone. Like, he could have looked at my phone. It was just a website, and said, oh, okay, whatever. But instead he just sort of contemptuously dismissed me and said, get out of here. We're going to get a big fine and stuff like that. So I kind of let them have it in the moment, and walked out of there under my own power before anybody threw me out. And then I ordered Legion ball cap from their website. It says, lest we forget. And I crossed out the lest, because that's how I feel about it is, we forget. We forget that a lot of people pay the ultimate sacrifice for these freedoms that our governments are now trouncing. And too many people seem to be cheerleading for it. So I just started doing my own individual protest. I wasn't really aware of any freedom movement, any pushback forming, because I had been off social media for quite a while at that time. And I went out, just shopping and going about my daily business and refusing to wear a mask. And I got arrested a couple of times for that. And I was refused service in multiple locations. So I started filing human rights complaints for refusals of service. And I wrote my own charter defenses for the arrests. And while I was doing all of that, then all of a sudden the trucker convoy ramped up. So I kind of knew where I had to be. I wasn't even really aware that others were interested in doing anything about this. So I went to Ottawa for the trucker convoy, and I was with the veterans when we took the fence down from the monument, which Mayor Jim Watson had put up there to smear the convoy, said that patriots were peeing on the monument, and so it needed a fence around it. And so we went down there with the bolt cutters and took down the fence and stacked it up nice and neatly for the city to come and take it away. And then we put a 24/7 sentry on the monument, and I ran the shift schedule for that. So naturally, I ended up with the 4 a.m. shift and that's when I got arrested, was when I was on my way in for the 4 a.m. shift. I was walking to the war monument with my war medals on, and they said, "You can't do that." And I said, "The hell I can't." And so I just kept going until they took me down, and I wanted to stand on my rights in court. But as you said, they found me guilty anyway, because even though by the time I got to court, the Emergency Measures Act invocation was declared ultra vires by the federal court in the Mosley decision, they said, well, police still have powers to cordon off areas under, say, like ancillary powers doctrine, common law. So, that's what they were doing. And I'm just like, no, that's not what they were doing. They were there because the Emergency Measures Act was invoked. Some of the guys who took me down, like one was from Vancouver, another one was from Toronto. Those guys were in town because the Emergency Measures Act was invoked. Anyway, the reasoning that they provided for the cordoning then was a bunch of CBC headlines, according to the judge, which I thought was worthy of appeal, but the Court of Appeals did not, so they refused to hear it. I've been involved in some other things since then, like we did Rolling Thunder. We had a wreath laying ceremony at the monument to give dignity back to the monument and to the veterans who were beaten and drugged off it. I was arrested again for going there. I was the sergeant major on parade, and I gave a speech, but I actually violated the conditions of my release from the convoy by going back to the downtown area 2 months later. So I had to give them some bail that time, which I don't think I ever really got back. So I should probably look into that.
Well, if we just pause on that for a moment,
Sure.
I mean, if we look at because there's a lot to unpack, and I don't know if you have always been a fighter or if you were put into a position where you're just like, forget this, I can't sit down, I'm going to have to fight. And you keep finding yourself in more and more positions that are presenting themselves. But how did, you join the Canadian military? You obviously had that fighting spirit in you. You had an idea as to what is right and what is wrong. And then you come home and you see what you clearly feel is wrong. How did that make you feel to be dedicating your life to a country, to have a country turn around and essentially treat you with a complete and utter lack of respect?
Betrayed. It's a profound betrayal, and that's what I have been saying publicly in every news appearance that I can find, is that all of this is a profound betrayal of every Canadian who ever paid the ultimate sacrifice. To behave in such a way as to, show that sacrifice didn't really mean anything, those lives didn't really mean anything. It's to say that my life means nothing. So, I can't help but feel personally betrayed because of it.
Well, when you're getting arrested, you've got your war medals on. They clearly know who you are, or at least have an idea of who you are. Was there any professional courtesy paid to you? Did you get any sense from the arresting officers that they're like, this is BS and maybe there's a way we can figure this out? Or was it just full on jackboots?
They mocked me and sneered at me. There was initially some lip service paid to the idea that they respect the kind of thing that guys like me do. And I said, you sure don't act like it, wiping your ass with the legacy of our fallen. From there on out, it was mostly mocking and sneering on their part. And I gave them a pretty good dressing down. I used to be a sergeant major after all. So, the professionalism was definitely lacking. It was abysmal the way that those guys behaved. And they said, this is something for the lawyers to figure out. Anyway, that's essentially the Nuremberg defense, right? Like, I'm just following orders. I don't have to consider, whether they are legal or not. That's for the lawyers to figure out. So they're basically, sort of offshoring their agency in that way, and tacitly admitting that they are just jackbooted drones. So it was pretty dismaying.
Well, what I'm curious about, and and I know we're not psychologists here or anything, but I'm curious about how it gets to that point. How do we get to a point where people look at things that otherwise would have been thought of as common sense and throw that completely out the window? How do we get to a point where those in a position of authority feel that their authority and discretion is unfettered and they can apply it in whichever way they want? Like what's going on that's causing this, in your opinion?
Well, it's kind of multifaceted. I think that there's a lot to be said about human nature in that answer. Nietzsche said that, God is dead and woe to us for, we may still need to vanquish him from some corners now. I can't remember the exact quote, but essentially in the book, God is Dead, what Nietzsche was saying was that as Europe turned away from Christianity, they would find something else to fill that God-shaped hole in the human heart. And that something else turned out to be communism. We had the bloodbath of the 20th century as a result. And it seems history is repeating itself, right on schedule, by the way, because it's been 81 years since D-Day, and 81 years before that was Gettysburg, and 82 years before that was the colonial triumph at Yorktown, which is the climactic battle in the American Revolution. And we go into these crisis eras called a fourth turning
I've heard that.
every 4 generations, once a human lifetime. So ours started, it was catalyzed by the 2008 financial collapse, global financial collapse, and the previous one was catalyzed by the 29 stock collapse. And from there, the institutions basically go into a state of collapse like dominoes, one after another. And we saw, after 2008, we had the 2010 militarization of the police forces at the G20 in Toronto. We had the universities started going completely haywire all throughout the 2010s. The censorship regime started coming in on YouTube. You started to see it there first, right around 2010. We even had the post office collapse. When we started reopening from COVID, like somebody set that post office up, 150 years ago and forgot about it because it's just been running itself ever since. So even the post office completely fell apart. And we actually saw the first institution that went into crisis would have been the military back in '93 with the Somalia affair, where, they actually hunted kids for sport and tortured and beat one of them to death that we know of. There were probably more than that, but the entire chain of command saw fit to cover the whole thing up. They convened a board of inquiry to look into themselves and said, everything's above board here. And at that time, the public said, no, that's not good enough. And we had a full-on inquiry into the matter. But that corruption, it never went anywhere. It's still there and still in the Department of National Defense. And it's the same people. They haven't really changed. They just got older, from the Somalia affair to the serial killer colonel to the grab ass and gaslighting generals. It was the baby boomers. They've been the ones scandalizing Canada's military for my entire career. And I was told to never pass a fault, and every time I heard it, I thought, what about you? I did fight the chain of command. I filed 10 grievances in my 20-year career. I don't know anybody else who did that. The lesson I take from it is that true reform cannot come from within. When you have those corrupt leaders in place and you're fighting against them, the entire time, it's a wasted effort, I'm afraid. So. And now what happened as of 2020 is that just through natural attrition, the baby boomers run all of our institutions. And I mean globally, like Xi Jinping would be included, would be a baby boomer, Vladimir Putin, Yahya Sinwar, across the board. This is what we're seeing. That is the reason that we go into one of these civilizational threatening crises every 4 generations or one human lifetime, is because the generation that's born in the wake of the previous crisis, we always, whether that crisis is the current COVID crisis, World War II, the American Civil War, the American Revolution, We always raise children in the wakes of these crises as indulged. So like the Leave It to Beaver, Dr. Spock's permissive parenting style
Sure.
that was advocated for at the time, where it's kind of like, we did it all for you and you can do no wrong and you're going to be the greatest thing ever and take this whole thing to the next level. But that's not what ends up happening. What ends up happening is they become of age as self-righteous narcissists prosecuting a new spiritual revolution in what's called the second turning. And that's where we saw like everything from the Iranian Revolution to 1,000 bombs per week going off in the U.S. In Canada, we had the FLQ crisis, the Quebec legislature shooting, a wave of serial killers across North America. And that's the thing, the AIDS pandemic. And so the people who did all of those things when they're young, they haven't fundamentally changed. I don't think that people fundamentally change beyond their formative years. If any, at best, we may grow, but they're still the same people. They just got older. And, it was in 1967 that a West German socialist activist, student activist by the name of Rudi Deutschke said, now we must go on the long march through the institutions. And that's what happened is the people who, engaged in all that terrorism in the 70s, they didn't really go anywhere. They went back into the institutions, our public institutions. They became the white-collar class. They're now the deans and tenured professors at the universities, radicalizing, the next generation. And so that's why we see all this campus unrest, and ditto for a lot of these NGOs and the like, right? Like the NGOs are completely corrupt and they're really being used for more activist causes and socialist Marxist type causes. So, and it also maps well to Yuri Bezmenev's, explanation as well,
Sure.
because he said that the first stage of active measures or ideological subversion was to demoralize the youth, and that's what they did in the schools in the post-World War II era, is they turned a generation against their own society. And he said, you can't stop this process of ideological subversion because those people, they're working now. They're in the institutions and they're working their way up and they're gradually going to co-opt the institutions and turn them against us. And so that's what happened in 2020. Just like Neil Howe, the author of The Fourth Turning, co-author of The Fourth Turning, and Bill Strauss, they predicted all this in 1991. They predicted the 2008 financial collapse and the 2020 COVID crisis. They couldn't say exactly what the nature of the crisis was going to be, but just that within the window of 2018 to 2022, that would be when the boomer generation was fully in charge of our institutions, and they said that they would go into a state of collapse, and we would face a civilizational crisis at that time. So, we're not due to come out of it until about 2030. So, I think the strategy right now is really more of harm mitigation. And lessons learned, hopefully, because we're going to be coming out of this saying #never again all over again. So,
Of course, the best predictor of future performance is past performance, and the best way to know where we're going to be going as a society is just take a little glance into the past and see how we've reacted to certain things. You talked about a lot of different things, and I'm madly taking notes out here, and I'm hoping my ADHD doesn't splay this off into too many different areas. We have time here in this podcast. What my hope is in sitting down with you is to highlight you as an individual, as well as the power of what one person can do. Because I see so very often people say, oh, that's easy for you, Jeff. I mean, you're a trained soldier. Oh, that's easy for you, Travis. I mean, you got the ear of somebody else here. Or it's always easy for somebody else. The reality is it's not easy, and it takes courage, and it's always difficult, and there's going to be things on the line, but there is a way forward where people can address whatever grievance they're looking at or injustice that they see in society in a way that they can win, as opposed to throwing themselves as the underdog at the bottom of the pile, where they can actually go in and strategically look at how they process this so that they can come to a state which is better for them, their family, and those around them. And I think I think oftentimes the people who are at the tip of the spear, like you've put yourself so many times, will only see the carnage. Will only see the difficulties and the atrocities that are happening out there, and you'll be responding to them. I'm wondering. You listed off the fourth turning. You listed off a number of things that are going wrong. Do you see anything currently that's going right?
I do see the pendulum swinging back. We're seeing a massive swing in the United States. They're doing a big turnaround on multiple issues. The one that is nearest and dearest to my heart right now is, on the transitioning kids, the medically transitioning kids agenda there with the trans agenda. And they have taken like massive steps to rein that in. In Texas now, they're even there's a big lawsuit win like the Attorney General took on, and there are millions of dollars that are being paid out in settlements, and the next project on the horizon that's already been announced is they're going to be setting up care centers for detransitioners, because that's something that there is no care for detransitioners, for people who have regret to deal with the health issues that have been inflicted on them by the trans industrial complex. So that's a big one in the United States, and here in Canada, I would say, like on the firearms debate, for example, I mean they're still trying to do this gun confiscation agenda that's all predicated on the Portapique massacre, Portapique being in Nova Scotia where I live, which was highly suspect. We still don't know what motivated Gabriel Wortman to do that, but we do know that he was paid $475,000 through a Brinks outlet the day before he went on the rampage. And the only people that we know that transfer cash around like that are the RCMP, and that's how they transfer cash to their confidential informants. So we still don't know that, but what we do know is that Brenda Lucki, the RCMP commissioner, was willing to pressure her investigators to breach their protocol and start telling the public what kind of firearms were used. So Bill Blair could stand on the still warm bodies of murdered Nova Scotian children to advance exactly this gun confiscation agenda. But the other thing that we were seeing are, red Tories like Slug Ford out there saying, like, yeah, people should be allowed to shoot you. If you break into somebody's house in the middle of the night, then you should be allowed to shoot them. And we should have some kind of, like he calls it, castle law. I think it's castle doctrine is the proper term. We even saw Larry Brock at the podium in the Parliamentary Press Gallery just the other day, saying the same thing. Like even when reporters were saying, well, just because somebody breaks into your house doesn't mean that you should kill them. And he said, what if they're unarmed? And he got up there and he said, well, the thing is, they conceal weapons. Like, people coming into your house are going to conceal weapon, and by the time you know that they do in fact have a weapon, it's already too late. So people are advocating for this. This is a conversation that we couldn't have like 5 minutes ago about the firearms debate, for example. And there are others that are kind of gradually swinging back. I think the climate one seems to be throttling back a little bit, even though we have Carney. Like, I don't think people are buying it anymore. We had the same problem here in Nova Scotia in 2023 with the wildfire season completely out of control. And it was all because of arson. But that didn't stop Sean Fraser from getting up in the House of Commons and saying, shame on us for not paying enough taxes while we're driving our cars. And, if we pay this carbon tax, then we won't have these wildfires. And then it came out after the fact that it was all arson, of course. I mean, not that many of us didn't see that right off the bat.
So that was proven, was it? Because I know it was speculated at the time that it was arson.
Oh, the Barrington fire, actually, the guy from who set the Barrington fire, he got charged with lighting a fire on private property without permission, failing to take steps to keep that fire from spreading, and leaving that fire unattended, but not arson. So I'm thinking left-wing eco-terrorist. He gets a slap on the wrist because he's on the left, and we live in a communist country. So Herbert Marcuse's liberating tolerance is in play, jackboot for the right and carte blanche for the left. I think that's what we're dealing with. But the good news is, when the same thing happened just last year in August of 2025, and they banned us from the woods because there were active wildfires, nobody said carbon tax, nobody said climate change. There was none of that. In fact, the firefighters unions were screaming about just utter incompetence at the levels of senior management, failing to put the proper resources in place and to lead their people, especially the volunteer firefighter departments, properly. So it seems like, the focus, the hysteria around climate is kind of abating right now. And there are other issues too. I think it kind of comes back like one issue at a time. The pendulum seems to be coming back, but it doesn't come back on its own. Like, we need people out there to just drag it back from the hairy, armpitted edge of the radical left.
You painted a picture there for me. So there's something that I've noticed, and you talk about the firearms side. I run a firearms business here in British Columbia. In fact, set up back in the day, the very first gun club under the provincial CFO started saying, well, if you want to get a restricted firearms license, or if you want to get an authorization to transport, you have to have some sort of proof. You got to prove to us why you need this. And they're accepting belonging to a gun club or a range as proof. Hey, that's valid enough. That's proof. Now, a person can belong to a range and never, ever show up. But hey, fair enough. That's proof. And I looked through the Firearms Act regulations, through the Act and criminal code, and I said, you guys don't have the authority. I can't find anywhere in here you're creating policy and you're acting it as if it's regulation or legislation, and you're hoodwinking everyone here. I'm going to take you to court. So I went and put some money aside, got a lawyer. Firearms officer calls me up, says, Travis, off the record here, we're the federal government. We're going to tie this up in the courts for years. You're never going to win. We got all the money in the world. We got your money, right? He says, why don't you just start a club? I'm like, well, I don't have the chunk of land to set up the range. He says, no, I said club, not range. Oh, hold on. So I talked to the lawyer. The money I gave you, can you set up this club? Looks like it'll keep them happy. It's it's not the perfect solution, but it allows people to, once again, get their restricted licenses, get their ATTs without having to go through this unlawful rigmarole. And so that's how the Silvercore Club was originally started. And it's a federal club because it's set up under the Federal Firearms Act, although it's provincially designated under Section 29. It's a federal thing. And every province and territory would recognize it, save at some point Nova Scotia. At some point, Nova Scotia stepped up, and their chief firearms officer, a fellow by the name of John Parkin, took it upon himself, and he says, Nah, you got to be a club in our province. You have to be set up under ours. So we went back and forth. I got the email exchanges. I got the back and forth. None of it made sense. I got an ombudsman involved from Nova Scotia. He mentioned, oh, yeah, I know John. We're buddies, blah, blah, blah. And then I got into the thing. Whoops. Okay, maybe a little bit of a conflict here. But long story short, what that caused me to do is start applying for ATIP and FOI and finding information that internal documents would suggest that Nova Scotia is a testing ground for unfavorable policy to see how people will react and how they can bring that across the rest of the country. And there was an example in New Brunswick because the Nova Scotia CFO was like, well, we're just going to put conditions on businesses and conditions on ranges that are outside of what we can do through the legislation or regulation, through the act or anything like this. But this is our discretionary conditional power. And they started clamping down in Nova Scotia on businesses and ranges. And New Brunswick stepped up and they're like, we're going to do the same thing. That sounds good. And a New Brunswick range, I think it was Springfield Range, took them to court. And the only defense the New Brunswick CFO had was, but that's what Nova Scotia's doing, right? And it was overturned. But I think people need to understand that they have the ability, they have the agency to be able to stand up and call these things into question. And there's happy paths, there's really difficult paths. Going to court's going to be one of those difficult paths because it a lot of times it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. It's who played the game better. Uh, I I know in Ontario, Daniel Poilievre was the one. He was a Silvercore Club member, and Ontario was like, okay, we're going to try doing the same thing Nova Scotia's doing, and we're not going to accept it. And he took him to court, and he won in court. Judge says you have to issue Mr. Poilievre his ATT and restricted license based on what he has. Their CFO at the time, Mr. Chris Wyatt, says, yeah, not a problem. We'll do that. Gets out of court and says, okay, Daniel, you just got to give us exactly what we're asking for before. We're not going to recognize these other things. So Daniel took him back to court, lost, but it didn't, not wanting it to be appealed further, Ontario then took a different position than they had before. So effectively, a change was made despite a loss in court. So I'm looking at you in Nova Scotia from British Columbia, the complete other side of the country. Are you seeing the same sort of thing? Are you seeing Nova Scotia being used as a testing ground? And if so, why do you think that is?
Maybe because we're a small province, we're kind of easy to push around and kind of sleepy. Like, and I mean that with all due respect. I think a lot of Nova Scotians are waking up, but people kind of want to live that quiet lifestyle around here, so they tend not to be like hyper vigilant, about these kinds of things, I'm afraid. And it's a bit of an anomalous place where we always vote Liberal, but we're a pretty rural place. And most people, like a very rural place, most people just want to ride their quads and shoot their guns like I do. But for some reason...
Just not on Sunday, right?
We can go shopping on Sunday these days. We're the last province to legalize Sunday shopping. So set your watch back 20 years, I guess, when you get to Nova Scotia. That's a pretty good rule of thumb. But yeah, it is kind of anomalous in that way. We tend to be kind of private people and kind of like just want to be left alone to live our lives and enjoy nature and stuff like that. But at the same time, kind of compliant, I'm afraid. So it's a bit like Maine. There's a lot of the fisheries here depends on government programs, and a lot of seasonal work depends on government programs, and even tourism. That's a big thing out here. I think we would be a lot better off. Things would probably change if they'd let us industrialize, let us develop our industry. And there's even been some movement on that recently with the lift on mining, the ban on mining out here in Nova Scotia, because we have uranium. Like we have uranium, we have shale, we have all kinds of stuff that we're just doing nothing with, and everybody's screaming about this. Right now there's the LNG terminal out in BC that's shipping. We're going to supply Europe, I guess, from BC. That's insane.
Yeah, that makes lots of sense.
I think BC has around 600, 600 tera cubic feet. And in Nova Scotia, we have about 400 tera, not Nova Scotia, but the Atlantic provinces overall have about 400 tera cubic feet here. So trillions, as in trillions of cubic feet, of natural gas. So they're pretty comparable, and our proximity to Europe makes us a prime location.
Yes.
To start supplying Europe with energy. And I mean, they need uranium too. They're buying it from the Russians, for crying out loud, just like they are their gas. So that's not good for, the geostrategic outlook. I think, we should be ramping up production. All it would take would be the National Projects Office designating, an oil and gas project in Atlantic Canada as in the national interest. And we have LNG terminals in St. John. We have them in Newfoundland. It's just that they're import only. It would be a matter of adding the liquefaction capacity, the capability to those plants to make them export terminals. There was another one that was slotted for Goulboro here in Nova Scotia, and Goulboro actually has an agreement with the Germans to supply them with gas. So I'm like, what the hell are we doing? I think if they would let us industrialize and kind of get off the government teat and off the equalization payments, that we'd be a lot more independently minded, because it seems that it should come naturally to us. But because we're under the thumb of government, we have this kind of weird culture that's kind of self-contradictory in a lot of ways.
I think you're right. I think you're right on that front. I think it's a little bit tough to hear from a BC boy saying that, but from a Nova Scotia boy saying it to other Nova Scotians, it's a little bit more palatable. But I think you hit the nail on the head there. That they're on the teat, and it's a place where they say, "Well, we're giving you the money, so let's try these things out, and you guys just don't squawk too much. We'll see what happens. You be the first for us." Mm-hmm. So if we look at, because I'm kind of interested in how we can use similarities between your efforts and what you're doing in other ways. Like there's the land access issues. There's Indigenous land grabs here that have been going on across the country now, but seeing it big here in BC. There's the firearms side of things. You've mentioned a number yourself already that people could be looking at. Of course, everyone was directly affected by COVID and the protocol that happened there. You took an approach. Let's say singularly, we'll take a look at one issue here. The one that you were recently, the courts found in your favor would be walking in the woods. Mm-hmm. Can you talk me through the process, why you did that, what you tried before that didn't work, and why you took that, and how it eventually worked out for you?
Sure. So like I mentioned before, we actually had the first woods ban come in 2023. I think there was actually one in 2016 too, but I must have missed that somehow. I was living in Ottawa at the time while I was still in the military. But in 2023, there was a massive fire about a 10-hour drive from my house, and I wasn't allowed to go into the park to walk my dog because of this fire that's, a 10-hour drive from my house. I don't mean...
Was that the Tantalus fire?
Actually, I was thinking about the Barrington fire.
Oh, Barrington,
Tantalus,
right.
Tantalus would have been 2025.
Okay.
But in 2023, they had these wildfires going on in the mainland, and I don't mean to, downplay that at all. Like, they were very serious fires. It was the worst wildfire season in Nova Scotia's history, but they were all on the mainland, and I live on Cape Breton Island. So there's a piece of ocean called the Canso Strait that separates us from the mainland, and there has never been a fire in Nova Scotia's history to jump over that 2-kilometer strait. So,
sure.
So I thought it was unreasonable at that time, and I submitted an application for judicial review to the Nova Scotia Supreme Court to have the measures reviewed in front of a judge. And when I stood in front of him, he said that I was not harmed by the measures, just the fact that my rights were infringed. Apparently, I could not stand on my rights alone. There had to be money involved. But he said, had I gotten fined, then I would have had standing. So my case was ultimately dismissed on standing in 2023. And when they brought in the measures again in 2025, I said, okay, well, I know what I need to do. And I called the Department of National Resources and spoke to the supervisor and told him exactly what I was going to do and said, I want to make this as easy as possible for you guys. So how about I come into the office? When would be a good time for you? And he told me to come in around shift change at about 4 p.m. and everybody would be there. So that's what I did. And I explained to the guys when I got there, like, exactly what I explained to you, that I had tried to take the government to court on that in 2023, and the judge said that I needed to get the fine. So, I'm not trying to give you guys a hard time. I was really clear about that. If anybody's seen the video, I tried to take it, firm, fair, friendly, as courteous as possible, and try to make it clear to those guys that I wasn't, looking to give anybody a hard time. I just needed some paperwork to have these measures reviewed in front of a judge. So then we went out back. I took a 90-second romp through a dense patch of bush and came out, and they issued me a fine for $28,872.50. So, so from there, I got the JCCF in my corner. They submitted an application for judicial review in my private interest. And the Canadian Constitution Foundation also submitted one in the public interest. And we went to court in March, and, straight up, like, I thought it was a complete bloodbath. I thought it was an open and shut case on the first day. As soon as the CCF delivered, like, their opening arguments, I'm like, it's open and shut, it's done. And we went through quite a bit more. We went through 2 more days So there was like a Wednesday, Thursday where it was CCF, JCCF, and then on the last day we heard from the Crown, and they well, it's just like I think what you're describing. It's like they're just making it up as they go along. They actually submitted in writing in their own legal briefs that the right to freedom of movement does not mean that we have the right to move freely in a free society.
What?
Yes, they tried to argue that.
That'd be an interesting one to try and argue.
Well, and you know they and that's the thing is. Well, in order to be charter compliant, they would have to show that at some point before issuing the proclamation banning us from the woods, that the minister would have had to have turned his mind to our rights and what the impact would be to our charter rights. Even in the briefings that were provided to the minister before he made the decision, in the section with the heading legal, the only thing that they discussed was the possibility that they might get sued by industry. And so they decided to come out with that permit system. There was no mention of our charter rights whatsoever. So, the test that they applied was called the Dore test, and that's step one. Did they actually consider our rights? And if they didn't, if they can't show that they did, or that at least, you know, the spirit and intent and the values of the charter were you know, it was apparent. There was no evidence at all that they considered our rights even for a moment. So fails the Dore test on its face. And I think really when the Crown got up to argue that, you know, he called it venting. I think he said he was venting that we had rights to move around, and tried saying, well, you know, you can't go through a crosswalk when it says don't walk. That would be jaywalking. So just no understanding of this idea of reasonableness and proportionality. Like there's a logical connection to a goal of preventing traffic accidents, especially involving pedestrians, you know, to having crosswalk signs. And it's also like proportional, you know, like it's so
Nobody can walk. And then if nobody walks, they will not get hit by a car.
Exactly. Or, you know, if nobody drives, then we won't
Right.
have any traffic accidents. Just ban driving.
Easy.
That'll save
Just
lives.
like guns, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Just like drugs.
Yeah.
You ban drugs and we'll never find them in the prison systems. Right?
Let's just ban murder. And then
they
we'll
should ban murder. Why don't they
should
ban murder?
absolutely ban murder. I don't know. It's still happening. How can it still be happening?
Where's the government on that one? So you talk about a judicial review. I remember many years back. So I've been asked on both defense and Crown Counsel to opine on issues generally in the firearms, use of force type realm and world, weapons related stuff. And there is one that was a defense counsel came up and they said, look, we're bringing this application forward. It's on a Type 97A rifle. It was legally imported by this business, and the government said it's A-okay, it's all good. And now they're saying, hold on a second, this thing's too easy to make go full auto. So can you take a look at this and opine on ease of conversion? And of course, as an expert, you're an expert for the courts. You get qualified as an expert in whatever matter that you're working on, and it'll only say you're an expert on that one matter, and then they ascribe weight to what your expert level is. Like maybe you're an expert for the courts, but of very little weight or of high weight based on whatever the courts determine. So anyways, I look at this rifle, comes on in, and it only took me, I guess, less than a minute to figure out how to make the thing go full auto, and it was really, really damn easy. So that was my report. I mean, I'm sure the gun community would probably take a look and say, well, why would you say that? It kind of hurts the case. Well, I'm there to tell the truth. I'm there to tell the truth for the courts. Mm-hmm. I go first. I go in on this, what was a reference hearing? I think it was a reference or judicial review. And I'm trying to get my terminology right here. Anyways, I go in first. I give my statement. There's a lot of things that were being put forth by Crown on this, which were completely wrong and easily verifiably false. But the crux of it was, yeah, this gun is pretty easy, right, to make go full auto, and you know, it meets the Hasselwander and it meets the different decisions prior to this for ease of conversion. Mm-hmm. Then, since I went first, I get to sit down and I watched their expert go up there, and that's longtime expert Murray Smith. And in my opinion, it felt like he was lying through his teeth. And had he learned or been privy to what I had to say previously, he wouldn't have to say any of the things that he was saying there. But of course, that's not part of the process. He can't get to see that. And so and I was like, holy crow, they're going to lose this just based on the fact that, like I said, in my opinion, see all these qualifiers I put around it, it felt like he was lying through his teeth. Either that or he was just highly, highly misinformed or had a very, very different set of facts than I was ever presented with. And so anyways, I was like, well, what are the courts going to make of this? This is crazy. It's very clear that what he's saying here is wrong. And what I learned was it really didn't matter what I said. It really didn't matter what he said, because the process that the courts were looking at was only if the steps were followed properly in arriving at a conclusion. If the conclusion they arrived at was completely erroneous, but the steps that they followed were reasonable, then the erroneous decision will stand. That was a bit of an eye-opener for me in the court system, because somebody's saying, well, I'm going to take this to court because I'm right. Well, those right clients are often the most expensive and difficult clients for a lawyer to be able to handle, and often the most disappointed by the final outcome, because right doesn't mean that you win. So I look at what you did, and it went through the court system, probably would have cost an arm and a leg, but did it cost you out of your pocket, aside from your stress, your time, your neck on the line? Financially, it was covered by...
Yeah. It was the JCCF provided my lawyer, Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom. So they run on donations, and they're a wonderful organization. They also provided my lawyer for the Convoy and Rolling Thunder. His name is Chris Fleury. So I got to work with Chris again. But Chris didn't even really engage much, because he was going to defend me in court for the ticket. But the charter application was litigated by Alison Poilievre and Marty Moore. So Alison is a constitutional lawyer and Marty is administrative law, all of which were in play in this case. So they litigated that portion of it, and they run 100% on donations. Like they're a wonderful organization, and perish the thought of where Canada would be right now were it not for civil liberties organizations like the JCCF and the Canadian Constitution Foundation. So no out-of-pocket expense to me.
Well, I think the courts serve a very valuable role, but I think to affect positive change in the way that we're looking at, the avenue has to be outside the courts. Personally, I mean, because you're rolling the dice, you're dealing with it 12 years later. You're by that time, maybe it's not even an issue anymore. Like, there has to be a public perception that's influenced in the same way that public perception was influenced in, let's say, COVID, that you were actively against the mandates that were coming in, because any reasonable individual can look at that and say, hold on, things aren't adding up the way they say it should be adding up. What I see, touch, feel with my own senses and eyes doesn't really make sense. I get that we're seeing it every single day, that X number of people are dying and it's being crammed down our throats, and all of a sudden that stops at a certain point. I think there has to be a way for people to wake up and just start asking questions and have a matrix that they can apply to things that come to them and say, is this right or is it wrong? Do I feel that I should be standing up against this, or is it not worth my time or energy? It says I'm just tilting at windmills here. Do you have a bit of a matrix that you apply?
I logic. Yeah.
Common sense and logic. Okay.
Yeah. And I guess I've just been a loud and proud skeptic since I was a teenager. Like, I read a bunch of Carl Sagan books. Demon Haunted World, Science is a Candle in the Dark, really endorses a skeptical approach. So, I need a reason before I adopt a belief. And what I mean by reason is just sufficient evidence to support the claim being advanced, analyzed through a logical framework, like just, basic logic, a syllogism, major premise, minor premise, conclusion, this kind of thing, without committing any logical fallacies. And that's how I evaluate information. When it came to the vaccine, we had the statistics from overseas well before we ever declared a pandemic here in Canada. And the data showed that in my age bracket, as a man, I had a lower chance of dying from COVID than I did from the seasonal flu. And I stopped taking seasonal flu shots like decades ago. I was like, I'm better off with the virus than I am with the vaccine when it came to the flu shot. And I was pretty sure that I already had COVID in January of 2020, which would mean that I would have natural immunity. And I was right about that too. I haven't been sick since. I have not been sick in over 6 years now. So, or 5 years, over 5 years now. So, what year is this? That's 6 years. It's 2026. That was 2020. So, so I was naturally immune just watching everybody run around with their hair on fire here in Canada and in Nova Scotia in particular. I would say that it's a long-term intergenerational project that we're all engaged in here, civilization, as we like to call it. And we need education reform. When I was a kid, I was being taught by the GI generation, when I was little, in primary school and stuff like that, there were these people who lived through the Second World War who were always telling me, I don't know how good I have it and how much people sacrifice to give me this life that I have and all these advantages that have been conferred upon me. But don't worry, someday it'll be your turn to rise up too. And you have a duty to safeguard this inheritance for future generations to come. So I kind of had that sense of civic duty instilled in me, just when I was a kid, going through school and learning about the Pilgrims and all of these things, these hardships that so many had to bear in order to build this country. I already had that in me, but I'll tell you what I didn't get was the philosophy. That came later. I had to discover that on my own, just through my own reading and whatnot. And I think that we need to teach philosophy in schools. That should be what schools are for. History is a branch of philosophy, as is economics. It's all sort of the intellectual water in which we swim, and just the critical thinking portion of it is what ties it all together. And there's nothing about a basic critical thinking course that you couldn't teach to a middle schooler. There's no reason to make people wait until they go to university and pay for it. These are basic skills that everybody needs.
Teach them how to think, not what to think.
Exactly. Say that all the time. It's a great way to put it. And on the COVID deaths point, you mentioned that they stopped hyping that all of a sudden.
Oh, because the deaths obviously stopped. Come on.
Well, that's the thing. Here in Nova Scotia, I was getting arrested for not wearing a mask in November of 2021 because that's when the Omicron wave was hitting. And the vaccine mandates came into effect in January of 2020 when we had 10 times the number of COVID deaths recorded here in Nova Scotia in January of 2022 as we had in November of 2021. So that's right about the time they stopped reporting on deaths.
Mm-hmm. I've always looked at COVID like fog. So when it first came out, I have a friend over in Valencia, Spain, and they're kind of on the tip of the spear over there in Europe. They're seeing things a little sooner than we were seeing over here, or at least they were reporting on it, because at that point, like you, I would feel I came back from SHOT Show with COVID, as did many other people before they were even announcing this. And he says, "Oh, Trav, it's bad." Okay. He's like, "Yep." He's like, "You just watch. We got police. They're patrolling up and down. They're keeping people in their houses, and because COVID's really bad. I'm okay. I'm on board with this." He says, I said, "Well, so you're seeing a lot of deaths in Valencia there?" "Well, no, not in Valencia, but over," and he's pointing over other places, "over here." And then it's like fog. It's not foggy where I'm standing, but you look over there, man, it's foggy. But if you walk over there and look back, oh man, it's really foggy over there. And that's what COVID was like to me. It's always like, well, it's not affecting me. I don't see it. It's not bad over here, but man, these hospitals they're blowing up, and regardless of the fact,
TikTok videos.
What's that?
Where the nurses are doing the TikTok videos. That's where all
right.
the deaths
Regardless
are
of the fact that there is the same issues prior to COVID and all the rest. I mean, it didn't add up to me. And I do have a tinfoil hat sitting here behind me that I haven't had a chance to wear yet. I'm not the tinfoil hat type person, but I will ask questions. And I will take a look and I'll say, and for me, the big thing was like, do I care? Am I going to go out there and get a jab or not? I mean, who cares? They say it's supposed to help. I trust in a certain level of the government, but do I want to get my kids jabbed? Well, no. I mean, they're really in a low demographic for any adverse issue and for this untested, untried MNRA. So if I'm not getting them done, why would I want to get me done? Right. And that was the thought process. And this sort of conversation couldn't even happen during COVID because it would either be censored or people would be looking over their shoulders or talking in hushed tones. And that's really concerning for me when we reach a point where people talk about this, this us against them sort of thing. And you probably see it in the military, and I see it in police officers as well. The lower ranks are talking about the brass. They don't know what's going on. And there's this disconnect. And I'm going to fight them. And the brass are probably like, oh, those stupid grunts down there. They don't know what's going on. They don't have to deal with. But there is a human condition to all of this. And I think if we're able to try and understand, I don't necessarily believe that the government is trying to control every aspect of every person for some nefarious reason. But I think human nature will say that if there's the ability to ride a wave for whatever personal, political, or sort of financial gain that you can, there are going to be people out there that take advantage of that. Like, I don't think there's a cabal of people out there that are kind of pulling all the strings, but I definitely think there are people out there that'll take advantage of whatever the zeitgeist is in order to benefit themselves. And I think that's kind of what we found ourselves in COVID. I think that's what we're finding ourselves in with the lockdowns and fire bans. Well, it'll look good. People will think I'm doing the right thing, or maybe there's a financial gain, or maybe there's something here. And same with the firearms stuff. I don't think they're stupid. I don't think the government's coming at this and saying, this is going to solve crime. They're looking at it and saying, I think this is what the people want, at least the voting bloc. So let's see what we can do.
Yeah. Again, it's another one of those things that's pretty complex. It's multifaceted. I think that you're right. Like, there's a lot of opportunism in all of this. And, there are plenty of people out there of sufficiently low character to absolutely, take advantage of the situation. But, I also think that we as humans, like, we eat our own all over the world.
Sure.
Like, we exploit the hell out of one another. We're natural exploiters of the vulnerable, a master-slave species. And, there is that totalitarian impulse that is in every one of us that we must resist. I think there's a line in Orwell's 1984 that I think probably best encapsulates that totalitarian impulse. And it's in the second last chapter when O'Brien's got Winston on the torture machine in room 101. And he says, "We shall squeeze you empty and fill you with ourselves." And that's what I see kind of across the board is, that's what totalitarians are like. They will not tolerate even the slightest little bit of daylight between your worldview and theirs. And I think it's something like a spectrum, maybe, where that impulse is in every one of us, and some of us have it under control a little better than others. And some of us are wiser than others, and some of us are more self-disciplined than others. And so when you end up with, like, low character types like Trudeau in charge, or Carney, or John Fraser, or any number of these degenerates that have been running the country into the ground for the last decade or so, that is their natural inclination, is to simply lash out and abuse whenever there's any kind of that daylight between their worldview and yours. And, like, on the firearms question, they're just they know what they're doing. They know that it's not legal gun owners that are committing these crimes, but they're happy to scapegoat, to abuse that segment of the population that they know is never going to vote for them anyway. And it's a great way to continue the political theater, to make it look like they're doing something. But I also think that it's too congruent with anarcho-tyranny to ignore. I mean, they're importing what was it? You took the Indian government sounding the alarm about how our own government had imported 18,000 convicted felons from India. And we have the CCP interference piece, which I've been screaming about that for years. It seems to have reached such a level now. It's so pervasive, I think. CBSA is compromised. The Americans have told us that. So we're importing criminals to go out and commit these crimes and then turning around and clamping down on the people that didn't do anything wrong. They're disarming the local population so that we're left more vulnerable to these destabilizing forces like terrorism and organized crime. I think that in the broader picture, like that's just one example that I could give you of, one of these measures that are being put in place that's utterly destabilizing to a society. As Sun Tzu said in the 5th century BC, the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without any fighting.
Sure.
And that's essentially what he sketches out in the Art of War, is a strategy to destabilize a state.
I'm wondering if there's a way that public opinion can make it politically untenable for governments to want to go down certain paths. I think they feel that there's certain social license for them to do things. They'll ride the wave of wokeism and say, okay, because it's whatever, name the year, that's why we're going to do this. I personally get taken back a little bit when we demonize opposition and we take a look at them and say, well, they're all bad because they voted a certain way, because they're from a certain place or whatever it might be. And I try my damnedest to put myself in the shoes of the side that I don't agree with. And when I take a look at, let's say, when we talk about some of the liberal ideology out there, and my background, I'm more conservative, probably more like grown up libertarian of a background. But, let's just take that one firearms issue. Okay, I get it. Wouldn't it be great if we lived in a place where I didn't have to worry about firearms violence, people getting shot, or the adverse effects, and what was it, Shakespeare, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I see that. I see that there is a lot of good intentions behind people who feel they know better. And arguably, maybe they do know better. I'm educated, I've gone to university, I've got an outlook on things. What you're doing out there is wrong. You shouldn't be doing it. But the problem is when you start sticking your finger in and trying to force whatever it is as a eventual outcome, you say it for me. Totalitarianism is sort of the outcome.
Yes.
And they say, well, but what I'm saying is good, and you have to listen to what I'm saying. And if you don't, then we're going to lock you up. And that's where everything starts to fall apart. So I am very cautious about trying to see it from the other side. I also try to look at it and say, okay, if a motivating factor here is that it isn't too hot for them to touch and that they feel that they can make political hay, and I'll say that could be any side, feel they could make political hay by making this a wedge issue or a divisive point, how do we take that off the table? How do we make it so that people are concerned with logic? They're concerned with how do we divorce, I don't think you can completely divorce emotion from it. I think that's an important aspect. People should feel. You should want to feel and have certain things, but there should be a reasonable path forward to that feeling if it's altruistic. How do we affect that change without falling into the trap of just fighting the other side?
Yeah, you're asking a mouthful there, because I do think that we do need cultural change. It all starts there. The politics is downstream from culture. We need an overhaul of our system. Clearly, we're going to be left vulnerable to this kind of exploitation so long as our politicians never face any consequences for these abuses. I mean, I just got that win in court, yes, the province of Nova Scotia abused all of our rights, our charter rights, and there are absolutely no consequences for any of the people who did it. So I think jail time should be imposed on any decision maker who abuses our rights. as they did here. And you know, it was always, I was always taught in the military that you know, the expectations are higher the higher up in rank you go. So
Agreed.
so yeah, you should face stiffer penalties, not a slap on the wrist like a $500 fine from the ethics commissioner. If you violate the law, if you have an ethics breach as a parliamentarian, yeah, I think you should spend at least 30 days in jail. You know, put them in the stocks in front of the parliament so everybody can throw rotten fruit at them or something. They should be humiliated.
Wasn't Mike Tyson say that? Everyone, what is it? People would be a lot less lippy if they got punched in the face for their something along the lines of them having consequence. Like people yapping back and forth online, and there's absolutely zero consequence for their words or actions.
You all got used to not getting punched in the face for something. Yeah, something like that. And then he beat up that guy in the airplane. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Guy was lipping off to him, and he turned around in his seat and just hammered him.
That's right.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'm not endorsing violence or anything like that, but maybe bring back a little bit of bullying. Like we kind of need people to keep each other in check, because like you call the cops and they're like, "What are you bothering me for?" and this kind of thing. And you see these videos of people, like it's issue specific. There was a guy who just got arrested in Quebec, where he was, you know, yelling at the cops because they were letting Hamas sympathizers parade through the neighborhood, and he's like, you shouldn't be allowing this in a residential neighborhood. And then when he turned around to walk away, the cops ran after him and took him down. I still don't even know what they were trying to charge him with there, because he just like expressed his dissatisfaction with the situation, and then he walked away. So it seems to be issue specific. I think that, there should be really harsh consequences for abuses of power. And that's kind of the question that we in the West are always trying to answer, and have been for centuries, is how do we get our leadership to stop abusing their power? And it always seems to be the case that the answer that leadership comes up with is, in order to remedy these historical abuses of power, we should abuse our power in the here and now. So you know, I think, I think that, like, we should shame these people. These people should be ashamed of themselves, and we should instill in our kids, you know, in the school system, these kinds of values. Although I'm not counting on the current school system to do that. You know, that's a real mess as well.
You know, I've talked with some highly, highly educated people, judges, lawyers, and people who deal with all different types of people and businesses and the rest. And it's funny, they say the same thing. There should be some level of shaming that's brought into place. And without that consequence, and it sounds absurd. It sounds really, like when I first heard it, like when you said, oh, they should bring back bullying, to maybe a little bit of bullying ain't bad, right? Or a little bit of shaming. But they have, sitting down and talking with them, they're given examples of, like, for example, the process of legalizing hard drugs and safe injection sites and all the rest in order to try and help people. Let's not demonize people who are addicts and addicted. Fair enough. And we're following a model from over in Europe. We're following a model from wherever. But our model excludes one element that those other models back east or back in Europe have, which is a public shaming process. And there is an accountability process, and people, and that affects a change more desirably. Not just here, have more free drugs. Let's not affect root causes. Let's not address. And it's a weird concept for somebody to think about, especially when we've been raised in zero bullying, zero shaming, zero. But the problem with that whole 0, is by default, you are hyper-inclusivity. Default is exclusivity. And we have to find some sort of a balance to this. Interesting thing that you're bringing up there.
Yeah, and it's something, you know, that Freud talks about too in Civilization and Its Discontents, where he talks about how it's the shaming of toddlers. Like, we're born savages. That's what human beings are. I think we're born evil, and it takes effort to be good. things like slavery and cannibalism come quite naturally to us in the wild, in the ancestral environment. And in civilization and its discontents, like you have to teach a toddler not to bite. You have to teach them not to hoard all of the toys and bully other toddlers and stuff like this, and you do that by shaming them. And it's this process of shaming our toddlers, of disciplining our toddlers, that Freud said results in a kind of necessary trauma in the mind, and that installs the superego, which is like the kind of internal overseer that's shaming us for our impure thoughts and watching us while we masturbate. So yeah, I mean, if you were raised that way, then you tend to sort of self-police. Inside, it's like, I'm going to be ashamed of this because you've got this internal overseer that's like, I see what you're doing right now, and that shame is what kind of keeps us on the rails. And in other places in the world, like say in Afghanistan, like they don't really invest in their toddlers because a woman there, I mean, she might only live until she's about 40 years old, and she's going to have about 10 kids, only about 3 of whom are going to survive. And so they tend not to invest in their toddlers because they're not sure that they're going to be around too long, and they don't want to get attached to them. So they don't really start to invest in their kids until they're adolescents, basically. And by then it's already too late. So
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, they remain. I think we're born sociopaths, and we end up with this superego installed. That's what a savage is. That's what the value for human life doesn't really come naturally to us. It's more of an in-group preference coupled with an out-group hostility. So you have morality that applies to you, to your family, and to your tribe, and then more broadly to your nation. But outsiders are naturally seen as threats, as competitors for resources, as carriers of disease. That all comes from the way we evolved. In the wild, and it's maladaptive. It's utterly maladaptive to a modern civilization. So, I think that we need to accept what we are, and accept human nature, and go forward with a strategy to raise kids and build societies in the full light of what we understand about human nature right now. And that's not what we're doing right now. What we're doing is it's basically everybody is special and perfect exactly with the way they are, and we should be accepting of all of it. But really, like, your natural impulses, are essentially the 7 deadly sins. Pride,
Sure.
lust, gluttony, so on and so forth. So those natural instincts need to be tamed, so we don't turn out to be civilization-destroying savages.
So what do you do to keep yourself from the savage self from coming out?
I practice stoicism on the daily. I read in the morning. I read the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, and I usually read from another volume as well. Like I have the Discourses of Epictetus and the Enchiridion on the go. And I journal and meditate, and just try to be mindful. Like, mindfulness is all about just recognizing those feelings when they arise. And when you notice the feeling, what you will also notice is that in the noticing, the feeling tends to dissipate. So you can kind of keep yourself in check with just some presentism, the power of now, being here in the here and now. I take a little pride, in my self-discipline. And I also recognize, like you said, I have a warrior's heart. So I've practiced martial arts my entire life, although I'm kind of all washed up now and can't really do it anymore. So that's a bit frustrating, but I'm trying to find a way back into it because it's a really good outlet for a lot of that kind of natural aggression that you should expect, to find. It comes naturally to men. It's our cross to bear, to tame that aggression. And that's a good outlet for it. It's healthy.
So aren't you angry? I mean, you're fighting against some nebulous threats out here that have zero consequence even when you win. How do you deal with that anger? How do you deal with that emotion?
Well, act out of anger or act out of fear, and you will live to regret it. And what I try to do is, I think the whole game in life basically is to take those negatives and turn them into a positive. So I try to take that negative energy and put it into something positive. And that's what I did. Like I just spited. I think spite is probably the sweetest motivation. And yeah, and I spited the hell out of the Nova Scotia government, and I shamed Tim Houston all over social media and in all of the interviews I did. Shame on these tyrants and so on and so forth. And you know, I played the veteran card all of the time. Like this guy goes around saying, "Lest we forget," every time. It's Remembrance Day again, but you know, lest we forget doesn't mean we got to get out there and have a funeral for these guys every year. It means lest we forget what they stood for, and lest we forget that we all have a sacred civic duty to safeguard that inheritance for future generations, to honor that sacrifice. And so I would say shame on him for spitting into the graves of our fallen the way that he has. So. Mind you, he still came out and said that he would do it again. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I'll do it again. I'll go out and spite him again. And even like, you know, my own daughter is a victim of gender ideology and hasn't spoken to me since 2023. So I get active in that space as well. I just did. I'm incredibly angry about what's been done to her by the state that I served for 20 years. And, you know, now I just came away on the 5th of May. I organized me and my very small team of incredibly dedicated volunteers put together an event called May Day Kids in Crisis on the 5th of May in Ottawa. And we flew in experts and those with lived experience of the harms of gender ideology. We did a parliamentary press gallery and a rally on the Hill and a town hall at the Bikers Church in Vanier, and the whole day went off without a hitch. We were on CPAC and all over the independent media, so definitely made a splash. I got Pierre Poilievre on camera, you know, dodging my question about Bill C-4 that he voted for, that imposes a 5-year jail sentence on any parent who doesn't want to give their child a sex change. And, you know, I have a personal story with that too, because he was the MP. He was my MP when all of this was going down. And I was in Iraq, and the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario started calling my 16-year-old daughter's phone directly and telling her that that she didn't need my permission anymore because she's at the age of consent. She can just come in for her sex change. And I recorded multiple conversations that I had with the clinicians at the gender clinic at CHEO. And offered to let Pierre listen to them so he could oppose this conversion therapy ban that throws parents in jail for protecting their kids from the trans-industrial complex. And he went on to vote for it a couple of more times anyway. So now I'm all over him on social media, and I met him a couple of times. Oh, I met him several times in person, and he was my MP. So, but I've confronted him in public a few times, and it seems like we're really stuck here in Canada on this issue. This pendulum should have been swinging back well before. It is starting to. We've seen, you know, this year, I think a lot more eyes were opened, starting with the Conservative Convention, where they voted down the motion to oppose Bill C-4. So they will not oppose it, but then there was the Tumbler Ridge shooting and a couple of other shootings that followed on that, and a plot to shoot up a couple of schools, one in Nova Scotia and one in Manitoba. And Dr. Ketchadorian, who was one of the first doctors to perform transitions on adolescents in Canada, was in the National Post saying the whole practice needs to be revised. And you know, so
The doctor
pendulum,
said that.
The doctor did, yeah. So
You know,
it seems like it wants to come back, but you know, the politicians are standing in the way, and it has everything to do with that unanimous vote on Bill C-4 from 2021. So
I've never understood that process. Like, I get we're all made different. We all come from different backgrounds. Maybe our minds don't match our bodies. So be it, right? But the idea that we have to destroy our body as a way to affirm our mind as a first line of processing and maybe people chime in and say it's not the first line, there's other lines, but why isn't the same emphasis applied to trying to get the mind to accept the body for what it is and say, look at this is I mean, like I wish I had more hair. I wear a hat because the light will reflect off my head. But I'm come to terms with that. That's
Me too.
yeah, there you go. My mind sees myself as a fully head hair guy, but my body is different from how, like, I'm not trying to make light of people who are transgendered and going through these things, but why is it being pushed so hard that, okay, you feel a certain way, let's go ahead and change your body. It'd be like a kid saying, I feel like a pirate. Okay, let's take your eye and one of your legs out and put a parrot on your shoulder. And no, that's absurd, Travis. You can't say that. But it seems similar to me, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say it's absolutely similar. And we don't give liposuction to anorexics. You know, there are all kinds of different forms of body dysmorphia, not just gender dysphoria, which used to be called gender identity disorder. And the reason that we don't offer talk therapy to alleviate gender dysphoria and help adolescents feel comfortable in their natural bodies is because Bill C-4 bans that. That's considered conversion therapy under the definition of conversion therapy in the
Seriously.
bill. Yes, absolutely.
Even though that's not converting, that's just saying, let's just be happy with what we have and find a way to work with the environment and what you have. Interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of like they're treating it like trans is the new gay. So everybody thinks that when we say conversion therapy, we're talking about praying the gay away. When in fact, there are 4 criteria under the definition of conversion therapy in that bill. Sorry, there are 6 criteria. 4 of them pertain to trans identity and only 2 of them pertain to being gay. So the focus is on the trans. And also, like, there's all kinds of things wrong with this, because even an informed consenting adult who wants to seek out talk therapy to alleviate their dysphoria, or maybe they don't want to be gay. Maybe they want to get some counseling for that. I'm not saying like you should do that. It's entirely up to you, though. You should be allowed to seek that kind of therapy, but you're not. So therapists are not allowed to provide talk therapy to alleviate gender dysphoria. And if you're a parent and you take your child to the United States to get such therapy, then you also face a 5-year jail sentence for doing that. And this should be a no-brainer. This should be a winning issue. But the thing is, in 2020, in 2021, they voted unanimously. All 338 MPs in the House of Commons voted unanimously for that bill. And so guys like Pierre Poilievre, like, he did it knowingly, like Aaron O'Toole, Michelle Rempel did a dance on the floor of the House of Commons while they all gave themselves a standing ovation for passing it. And so all of the senior most members of the established political parties, the party hegemony, they voted for this stuff. And so none of the rank and file can talk about it without losing their party status. And that's the situation they're in. Everywhere else in the world, like Sweden, Finland, Norway, Denmark, the UK, France, the Netherlands, the United States, they're all bringing in tight restrictions or all-out bans on these sex change procedures for kids, and we are still barreling forward. We can't get them to budge on this because of that unanimous vote, I'm afraid.
There seems to be there's this air of victimhood that's sold, and like I say, I don't think there's a cabal out there that's controlling everything and trying to do things, but victimhood is an easy way to control, right? If you're a victim, okay, we'll take care of you. If you're a victim, you'll get some money. Don't call the police, don't take care of it yourself, call the police. We have systems set up. We have social systems, we've got policing systems, industrial systems, and it feels like we have required people in a warrior class to create a system that we can live in that is just and has rules, and we've got different protocol that we all live by. But over time, that warrior class starts getting shoved to the side because they say, "Well, hold on a second, we don't want this anymore. We don't need you fighting right now. we'll take care of you. We've got our own system that we can do. And I think that victimhood plays well into all of that. And we watch our government bureaucracies balloon based on this victimhood idea. And I see it sold to children, like my kids when they're going through school. Everyone's got a learning disability, and you're cool if you do, right? When I went to school, I was diagnosed with severe ADHD in grade 3, and I didn't want anybody to know. I was put on the highest dose of Ritalin on an experimental run for the province, and couple years later, the class found out, and everyone's like, "Oh, Travis is taking his smart pills," right? And it's,
Oh yeah.
but you don't want people to know. Now it seems like it's a badge that people wear, and the same thing with gender ideology. Well, yes. I'm just cisgendered. I'm just normal. Well, like what can I do to be cool? And it seems to me that that's being pushed, whether that's and I don't know why. I don't know if it's just a natural system and people ride that wave and they can see, oh, if we push this forward, it makes us look like we're the good people. Like governments we'll all vote for this because look at this, we're doing the right thing now. Like where does that come from? Why does it feel that this victimhood is being so heavily pushed?
I would say Marxism, if I have to bottom line it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, well, cultural Marxism. The Marxists weren't always concerned with. Most people think of it in terms of like economics. You know, there's
Sure.
the bourgeois oppressing the proletariat class. But it's actually a totalitarian ideology that applies to all aspects of life, and it's been refined and tweaked and built upon over the decades. It's festered and metastasized within academia and the university in particular. And from there, like that permeates the entire professional class and essentially captures our institutions. And so like the proletariat class, well, I mean, it was Kimberly Crenshaw who came up with this idea of intersectionality, where, you know, it's not just that she's oppressed because she's a woman, feminism being sort of the OG of the cultural Marxist movement, you know, and to say, people will say, as a woman, I believe this. That's to say, as a member of the proletariat class, I believe this. As one of the good people, I believe this. So if you're a good person, then you believe what I believe because I'm one of these special proletariat types. And then Kimberly Crenshaw came along and said, you know, that, there's this intersectional wheel of oppression where, people like her are oppressed, not just because she's a woman, but also because she's black. And I don't know, maybe she's a lesbian, but that would be another one. So now we've got like this entire hierarchy that kind of flows naturally from that, where, you know, if you're in the presence of a transgender Muslim lesbian with a peg leg and allergies, then you must check your privilege and defer to her utterly on all matters. Defer to they, them, I think I should say, on all matters. There's this idea of inclusivity out there, which is actually exclusivity because we're in Orwell's paradigm. In Orwell's paradigm, like it's opposite land, right? Everything is actually the opposite of what they're saying. So when they say inclusive, they actually mean that it's quite exclusive. So you, if you're a straight, white, cis, heteropatriarch, you don't have any of these diversity cards that you need to be in the club and to get ahead, to be accepted, then the transgenderism is something that makes you one of the transgender children in particular are essentially sacred beings in this in this neo-Marxist religion that we're all facing right now. And that's a great way to get into the club. Okay, like I wasn't born black, or I wasn't born one of these other intersectional proletariat classes, but this is an identity that I can adopt, and then I'll be in the exclusive club. It's basically the commodification of victimhood, like you say. Like people will take on these victim identities, wear them as a badge of honor, and I think that it just goes to show you just how culturally Marxist we become, and that's why we got to reform our culture as well. Politics is downstream from culture, and we have this ideological poison that's basically seeped out of the universities over the decades and compounded with every graduating class, I'm afraid.
With all of these different causes and all of these different places where you're standing up for what you believe in, what's the greatest price you've paid?
Well, I mean, that would be my daughter, and she cut off contact with me in 2023 because I wasn't supportive of the transition. I never was. I kept her safe as long as she was under my roof, but she lives with her mother now, and she started on testosterone, and just had her breasts removed last September at the tender age of 22, and so that's definitely the most painful experience of my lifetime. And I just retired to my hometown here where she is, so I could be here to catch her when she falls. But I got all that negative energy that I got to put into something positive, so I might as well go after the monsters who did it to her while I wait.
Do you think that's just going to demonize you further?
I mean, in her eyes, is that
Yeah,
what you mean?
that's what I mean.
I think, there is that potential, but I've kind of settled on the idea that, ultimately, like, I gotta live by my own example, first of all. And I always, took a pretty rigid position on the logic and the reason and the discipline and these kinds of things, even in the home. Like if the children wanted to challenge me on a decision or a rule that I set, then they may do so, but they have to do so dispassionately and logical. And I would teach them critical thinking in this way. And so that was always the hard boundary, the only hard boundary that I really set. And I guess the one that she decided to rebel against. I think in a lot of this, like I'm just setting that example of trying to stick to my principles, live a principled life. And what I think should come through, what I hope comes through, is that, I'm just a dad here trying to do everything I can to show that I care. Nobody's done as much for her or continues to do so much as I have. So I think it's probably just going to take time. I have to let her come around on her own at this point, but when she does, I think I'll have a pretty good track record to stand on to say, like, I never stopped caring.
It sounds like we've raised our kids in a similar way. I would tell them, look here's the rules, here's what we have, but I'm open to reasonable persuasion. If you can put together a logical case to the opposite, fair enough. And here's a framework that you can work with to try and bring that out. I mean, my edict isn't law. I'm always open to reasonable persuasion. And I found that's been a very helpful way in raising my children to not really get entrenched in our ideas and our opinions, but rather, like, how can we see this from the other side? For your perspective, what would it take you to change your position with your daughter?
To accept that transgenderism is like a legitimate claim?
If that's her position, I'm not sure. It sounds like that's her position. That what would it take for you to see eye to eye with her and agree with where she's at?
I mean, I said this a lot actually when I was dealing with those maniacs at CHIO, because I was always asking them to provide me with evidence to confirm their assessments. And some of the things, because I ended up having to dive into all of the literature at the time. And there is, I suppose, such a thing that's better described as transsexualism, where, due to, say, insufficient testosterone flows in utero for males, or, if females got a testosterone flow when they were in utero, that they might have certain qualities about them that are sort of in between
Sure.
genders, like even when it comes to male and female brain anatomy, they're different. There's a vastly different white matter to gray matter ratio. I can't remember which way it goes between the sexes. And sometimes people end up in one of those because of what happened in utero, that people end up with maybe more, feminine traits, a man with more feminine traits or a woman with more masculine traits. So, but you can see that on a brain scan, and you can see like if somebody has Klinefelter syndrome, where they have like XXY chromosomes. These are testable claims, and that is the fundamental difference between the claim of being gay, which is ultimately a statement of preference. We don't expect people to logically justify their preferences. They just your preferences are what they are. But when it comes to the claim that I'm actually a boy in a girl's body, that rises to the level of metaphysics. And so this is a claim about reality, about the nature of reality, which means that it is testable. You have to be able to provide supporting evidence for that claim. And I just gave you a couple of examples of something that might be supporting evidence, but really none of those are about transgenderism. Transgenderism is a very cultist, culturally Marxist ideology. At the end of the day, what I was describing there is more like conditions that probably fit better into the category of transsexualism, because they are physical traits that sort of people end up in a kind of in between state. With transgenderism, like the psychiatrist, the head of adolescent. The adolescent gender clinic, Dr. Stephen Fetter, told me that he looked into my daughter's heart and soul and determined that she was male. And I said, how did you determine that a soul exists? And he said, I don't have to answer that question. So they are actually making the claim that not only that a soul exists, but that souls have genders, and that they're able to tell which gender your soul is by talking to you. So, and that was over the course. Well, I mean, he had already made the decision on the first visit to put her on puberty blockers, which I didn't go for. She didn't do that under my roof. But it is a cult, I'm afraid, at the end of the day. But I'm open to being convinced otherwise.
What's a question that nobody's asked you but should have?
Holy smokes, that's a pretty profound one. I really don't know. What would I think I've already given you my solutions for the future. I think if we're going to avoid going into another one of these crises, the likes of which we're living through right now, this crisis era, the next one is due to hit us in 2108. And my insight is that, we have to change the way that we raise children. We got to talk to the millennials about how they're about to raise children as we pull out of the current crisis era. The thing is, like, kids need challenges, and spare the rod, spoil the child. I wasn't a spanker. I never spanked my kids, but, they do need to be disciplined, and they do need to be shamed. And I think maybe the Greeks had it right when the Leonidas upbringing, hard times create strong men, and we need strong men to create and to sustain good times. And that's what we see across the board right now is weak men bring hard times. So if we want to stop the cycle, then I think we need to start throttling those kids a little harder.
Jeff, thank you very much for sharing your perspective and for being on the Silvercore podcast. I enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, my pleasure, brother. Thanks for having me. It was great.